I think it's a good time to start. I think it's maybe a couple seconds before 3:05, but I wanted to say thank you for being here. My name is Alejandro Gonzalez. I'm one of the three Adobe specialists here at the University of Arizona. We are joined by Kyle Arthur and Gerald Zivic, who we call Zivic. They're the other two Adobe specialists, and our job is to help with all things Adobe on campus with these workshops, resources, classroom visits, support, any of that good stuff. And this is being recorded, but not in Zoom because Zoom records at like 8 frames per second. So I'm using a different screen recording software, but it'll be up on our YouTube channel later. And today's workshop is about Premiere Pro. The goal here is to help people get started and get comfortable with the Premiere Pro workflow and workspace. So the two works of it. Before I jump in, how about we give ourselves a score in the chat? How do we feel our comfort level with Premiere Pro? Being 1, I'm very uncomfortable. I've barely opened it. And 5, I could be running this workshop. Adobe should hire me. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. All right, the 3, another 2, another 3. My background is photography, so like I give myself 5s in Photoshop and Lightroom. When it comes to Premiere Pro, because I don't use it as often, I often have to look up how to do things. I forget keyboard shortcuts. I give myself maybe a 3.5. But the short of it is, it's okay not to be comfortable with the software and not to remember everything. We like for folks to be resourceful, and that's why we like to make resources. Okay. So the resource page that we made, it's Video Editing Basics with Premiere Pro. If you scroll down, there's a recording of the last time we did this, actually the last 2 times because they're slightly different. I'll probably replace this one with today's. And then there's some pre-production tips, how to add your files, actually editing, exporting, all that good stuff. You can go through the menus if you like. And at the very bottom, there's also an asset resource link where there's a link to Adobe Stock. So all of the University of Arizona Creative Cloud licensed folks have unlimited image, photograph, vector, and image licenses, graphic licenses. So you can go and download some assets for your video. But we don't have audio and video for free, but you can request those if you shoot us an email. adobecc@arizona.edu. Then there's the YouTube audio library, which is a great source for soundtracks and audio effects. Pexels is a great source for video, audio, and photographs. And then Penn State is kind of a collection of free media sources. So, if you're doing this for yourself or if you're running a class, just let's be thoughtful of where we're sourcing our files, our assets, and not just pull things that we find on Google, because we probably don't have permission to use them, and they're usually kind of low quality. All right, so let's look at what we're going to do today. Here's Premiere Pro, and here's my files. So a few things before you begin a project, really any media project, but especially these video projects. You want to have all your files together. You want to have your ducks in a row, right? You want to have them organized and in a permanent location. So if you're saving temporary files and you have a folder on your computer that clears itself when you restart, you shouldn't be using anything from there. An example of that is if you have your web browser open and you drag an image from the website into your sequence, you have added a temporary file. The computer knows where it is. You don't know where it is. It's deep in the system folders. When you restart, next time you open up Premiere Pro, that file will have a big yellow exclamation point because it disappeared. So Premiere Pro points to your files. We call them assets, which is the audio, images, and videos that you use to create your video. So it's a non-destructive process, and it's also something that helps it work faster, and you'll see that it can be a pretty demanding program. So have them really organized and keep them where they are and how they're named when you're getting started if you want to avoid some really common headaches. My usual organization is just I name the project. This is Picacho. So here's my folder, Picacho. Downloads isn't a good place to have your important project files live, but I'm going to delete this when I'm done because I do this over and over. Then I separated my audio from my photos from my video. And I might even go as far as defining my A roll, my main footage, from my B roll if this was a bigger project. But we're just going to kind of keep it light and do what we can. So I have a voiceover.
The other day.
Am I sharing my audio? I wonder. There we go. Can we hear that? Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Tatiana. I have some photographs from Picacho Peak and some videos as well. There's Zivik. He's sideways. Should be fun. All right. Now, I put together this video like really quick just now, and I would say that it's not a perfect narrative, but it's just a story of using multiple tracks and kind of a lot of us might wonder why we would use Premiere Pro instead of Premiere Rush. And that's kind of a lot of what I'm going to try and show you today. And already, if you look at my project, if you were using Rush, I would have exceeded the number of tracks that Rush affords me. All right, so here's this video.
We hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time. This 2-mile hike.
I'm just going to scrub through it so you can see there's some B-roll, some A-roll, some photographs that we zoom in, and soundtrack and audio. And I actually forgot to duck it, but we're going to start from the beginning and do it right. So I'm going to go home, and hopefully when you open Premiere Pro, you'll see a screen similar to this. I'm going to close Picacho Peak. I put Pikachu because I think I'm funny. Oh no, I closed everything. That's what I get. Fresh start. Okay, so when you open Premiere Pro, sometimes it will show you the project page, and it'll show you previous projects. I like to open the Learn tab instead, because there's a ton of really great videos here. Some of them, under 10 minutes, where you can learn how to do something, combine different footage formats, actually open up a PSD and use the different layers as part of your video project, and so on. So there's always a lot to learn, and I know I still have a lot to learn. You can also, if you've been working in Premiere Rush, at the bottom left here, you can open a project from Premiere Rush and send it into Premiere Pro. You can't do the opposite. You can't take a Pro project back into Rush. But what's nice for this is if you've gotten really comfortable with your Premiere Rush workflow and you want to set everything out as much as you can and then do finishing touches in Premiere Pro, you can do that or get those more robust features that aren't in Rush. All right, so I'm going to start a new project. I'm going to name it. So here's another piece of advice. I said, make sure your files are super organized and in a safe place. Number 2, name things. Name things as much as you can and with things that make sense. I wouldn't name it edit final 59, right? Final. That doesn't mean anything. So I would name this Picacho demo 3/29/2023. I will know what that means. Then here's your project location. What I tend to do is save it inside the same asset folder that I created. So in this case, it would be in my downloads, Picacho, just straight in here. And I like to do this because then if I want to take this file and continue working on it, I could just put that whole folder on a flash drive or a hard drive, put it on my laptop, upload it to the cloud or anything like that, and know that nothing will be missing. All right, so I chose where to save it, and I'm actually just going to hit create. You can find your files and start choosing what you want to put in there, but I'm going to just hit create and start from a blank sequence. And on top of that, I'm going to reset my workspace. Okay. I forgot to mention that questions are welcome at any point in time. You can unmute, you can chat. If I don't notice the chat, Kyle and Ziv will usually make me pause for a moment and answer questions too. So super informal. We're just here to get comfy with Premiere Pro. Okay, so this is our workspace, and there's not a lot going on right now, but one of the first things I do is customize my workspace for the things that I use the most for quick editing projects. So this left-hand side is the source. It's also effect controls are the two that we'll use the most. Source is to review a piece of footage that you're going to drop into your sequence, into your timeline, if you will. Oh, thank you for turning captioning on. I always forget about that. Program is your actual project, the videos that you've put together with sound, graphics, and images, A-roll, B-roll. This is where you view that. The timeline is where you make your sequence of clips. It's made up of multiple tracks, video and audio. It can also have photographs, motion graphics, templates, transitions, all that good stuff. And then here is your project bin, which is where you can drop all your files and then pull from them to put into your project. You can also just drag and drop directly into your sequence, but that kind of can encourage poor file organization, so I tend to use the bins in the lower left. Now, I also like to add some of my favorite panels and shrink some things down. So one thing I do is I take the source monitor and I shrink it down, maybe this much. Boom, nice. And then I'm going to add 3 panels that I believe we'll see all of today. Essential sound, which is how we can edit sound and also find sounds. Essential graphics, which is how we can add motion graphics templates and like titles, like a lower thirds intro title. And Lumetri color, which is how we adjust the color, contrast, and just general look of a clip. So I'm going to go to Window, Essential Graphics, and I do like it on this right-hand side, so I'll leave it there. Window, Essential Sound. You'll notice it just does a tab, which is really nice. And then Window, Lumetri Color. I'm not sure if that's how you're supposed to say it. Lumetri? I don't know. So I have these. And right now there's nothing going on because there's nothing to edit. So the next thing I'll do is import my bin. And I did say drag and drop can lead to bad file organization, but I will just drag my entire Picacho folder in here. Whoa. Here we go. Ooh. Did I put that green screen bear in there? I didn't. Let's put him in there too. We're going to do a bonus green screen if we have time. All right, Picacho. Ooh, it's importing my project. Hang on. Because I saved the project in there, so that's going to confuse it. Let's just get the folders and not the project. There we go. All right, so now I have audio, video, photos. And if I double click video, you'll see I have a mix of video. I have this bear. If I double click, I can view it with the green screen. That's just a teaser for later. I don't know why he's not moving. Oh, there he goes. Okay, good job, bear. I have some iPhone footage, which you might actually notice looks kind of terrible. It's really blown out. It's overexposed. Something's wrong with the gamma settings. So this is actually something I'm going to show you how to fix right now as well. This happens with 4K HDR iPhone footage. I have some footage from the camera itself, which is sideways.
This is really.
And yeah, so I have footage from 2 iPhones and a nice camera. And what happens now is the first clip you put into your sequence is going to set your video settings, which you can change later. But if I put this iPhone video in, it's going to be a vertical video at whatever resolution this video is, which is fine. So let's look at this one with the bad exposure. And let's look at how to fix that first, because this happens a lot with iPhone video. You have to go right click, modify, and you have to interpret the footage. And what we need to do is change its color space to one that looks nicer. I don't know what I clicked. So I go color space override, and we use REC 709, which I think is just the industry standard. But if you look, when I click OK, I'm going to get detail back in my sky, and it's going to look less blown out. There it is. And maybe it's a little washed, maybe a little muddy, but we can fix that. So now I'm going to drag it into my sequence. And here's something I want to show you, because I don't want the sound from this. I think the sound is not going to be helping my project at all. So here in my source monitor, I can actually add only the video or only the audio. So that's a nice little time saver. So I can go only video. If I wanted to do it the hard way, I could just drag the whole clip in, and then I can right click, unlink, and then click on the audio and delete it. So it's just like saves like 2 seconds, but in the long run, it's a lot of time. So here's my footage. It's just us coming down Picacho Peak. And I'm just going to kind of let that play with random B-roll showing up on top of it. While we're looking at it, we might actually take a second to maybe adjust the color a little bit. And that's what Lumetri Color's for. I'm glad to show you at least one new thing. This is a successful workshop. So if I look at this, I could go to just the basic correction, and I could try just pulling a little saturation back into it, because I really feel like it just got desaturated. But a better one than saturation is actually vibrance, which I think is in the creative panel. Yeah, so vibrance will target more the blues and greens and try not to make people look like lobsters. So if I pull saturation up, it can get a little weird looking a little fast, but I can do a combination of both. You can also spend time messing with, these are your same adjustments as you see in most photo editing programs. So you don't have to accept your video footage as it is. And we can see a pretty good side-by-side comparison. If you look at the sky and the creosote, we just made it a little more vibrant by using the creative slider, adding a little saturation and even more vibrance. But you can adjust the exposure, brighter or darker. You can even pull the highlights in. That might bring some more of my sky. And one recommendation I have is, before you start cutting anything up, this is for video and audio, make your adjustments first. So I'm probably not going to cut this piece of footage up. If anything, I'm just going to change the speed. But with the audio, it's the same idea, because if you cut it up, like if I press Command K here, now I'm editing one clip at a time. So if I were to pull the saturation down on this one is unaffected. While we're talking about splitting clips, in fact, let's go back a little. I'm using my favorite keyboard shortcut, Command or Control Z. There's a few ways to trim a clip, and you're going to do it a lot. And just a friendly reminder, Premiere Pro is non-destructive. So if I know that my video is going to start right here, and I use a keyboard shortcut, pressing Q, what Q does is it splits it, deletes the preceding footage, and moves it forward. So if I press Q, everyone see that happen? I just removed a piece of my clip, but because this is non-destructive, I can grab my clip and I can pull that right back. So it's always there. So if I wanted to split this clip in half, there's a few ways to do that too. I love keyboard shortcuts, so I can press Command or Control K, and it will split it right where my playhead is. That's what this blue flag and line are. And then I can move it around. And same thing, I can always bring that back. If you like doing things manually, you can also just pull the clip in to remove what you don't want. I find myself always doing a mix of both. And there's also the razor tool, which is over here in my little tool area. If I click that, I can go and cut a bunch of spots and then delete as needed. Now, one thing that might make sense is you might watch a video and place a series of markers to tell you where to go back and cut it really quick if you don't like to cut it as you watch. So if you press M on the keyboard, I thought it was M. Oh yeah, but see, the marker is right here on my clip. So pressing M puts a little flag down letting you know that you intend to do something there. If you don't want it attached to the clip, you have to click in this empty space, and then you press M and it flags on the actual timeline up here. Just little things that as you work on bigger projects might help you get your work done more efficiently and with less headaches. Any questions so far? Okay. So I'm going to have this playing. And then what I actually want to do is go ahead and put my soundtrack on here because I like to show something that I think is really cool. If I go to audio, I have cinematic atmospheric. If I double click, I can listen to it. Okay, very inspiring. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it in my first audio track. The lower tracks are audio, the upper tracks are video, and you can have what feels like an endless amount of video and audio tracks. You just keep putting them into the other space. All right. So what I want you to notice is my audio. I'm hitting plus on the keyboard to zoom in. So plus and minus zoom in on your timeline. I believe Command or Control plus will zoom in on whichever track you have selected, which can be helpful. I guess it doesn't do it for audio. It can be helpful to see what you're actually doing. All right. So my audio ends before my video. So after this part, it's going to be silence. Which, I mean, I guess I could click on this, hold Alt or Option to duplicate it, and just have it start over. But there's going to be that kind of awkward feeling of, oh, this is over. Oh no, we're starting again. So instead of that, we can use something called the Remix tool, which uses Adobe's AI or their Sensei. It's, I believe, hiding in the Ripple Effect tool. So underneath my selection tool, I have Ripple Effect Edit, and I'm going to go to Remix. And what Remix does is you just drag, the song's already at the end. So I'm going to say, no, I want the end to be at the same point as my video. So I go to the very end. And what it does is it analyzes the song, determines the end, loops the normal parts of the song, and then pushes the end to the back. So if you see here, these little arrows are where it went ahead and looped it. And in my opinion, you can't tell that some AI magic happened, which is kind of almost upsetting how well this works. And then at the very end, it will end. One little note, you hear that kind of audio scrubbing that's going on as I move my playhead around. If you don't like that, you can go to Sequence. I can't remember, but you can turn that off. Let's go to Help. Audio Scrub. Oh man, I did it earlier. We're not going to lose time on this, but if anyone really wants to know, I'll find it at the end. All right, not to worry. It looks like I deleted my project by mistake. Command Control Z, very good friend. I also like to just press Command or Control S every once in a while to save my progress. It's not like Rush where it auto saves to the cloud. This saves to the computer. It does do auto recovery, but never depend or trust that to be what you want. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my selection tool. And let's kind of keep building this out. So what I thought we would do is take this voiceover, and I was recorded hastily, but it's just me talking about our trip to Picacho and some of the wildflowers that we saw.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time. This 2-mile hike had some incredible views.
And if you notice, the audio is actually pretty good, despite my voice, right? I just recorded it with this Yeti microphone, straight in Rush and Premiere, and then I exported it out so that I could do this demo. And I forget what this is called, the volume indicator, also lets us know that the levels are actually pretty good. We want to see it generally staying here in the what we call the -6 decibel. This doesn't labeled. And we never want to see red peaks, or almost never, unless I get really excited. So if it's really only peaking here, you want to go and raise your volume up. And I'll show you how to do that. So you can see I had one peak there. And I don't know why this microphone, the left channel is slightly louder than the right channel. But we'll probably export as mono instead anyway. Okay, let's drop the voiceover right here. And what I want you to notice is I actually need to trim everything. So I actually want this to end at the same time as my voiceover. Here on the track, I have M, S, and a microphone. M is to mute the track, so I won't hear the soundtrack. S is to solo the track, so I only hear that track. And the microphone is to actually... Oh, thank you, Kyle. Kyle found the audio scrub. I think I was thinking about selection follows playhead was another thing we were messing with earlier. Okay, so, and the microphone lets you actually record audio. So if I click this, now it's recording what I'm saying to my third audio track, I think. Yep. So let's solo it. And if you notice, I muted this because if I don't mute it, it actually gives me a monitor. I actually hear my voice. It's kind of almost echo, but
now it's recording what I'm saying to my...
I thought right. Okay. So what I want to happen is for...
I recommend you check it out before it gets too hot and the Wildflowers are done with their show. Thanks for watching.
That's kind of where this video can end, maybe right here. So I'm going to click on this and press Command K and delete it. What I'm actually going to do with this video of us walking down is speed it up to be the same length as this audio track. Generally speaking, it's safer to speed video up than to slow it down. When you slow video down, you're asking whatever program you're using to invent frames, because that's what slow-mo is. It's video shot faster than 30 frames per second. If we look at my timeline here, I have my playhead position, which is my time indicator, if you will. We have hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. So every video is made up of frames per second. This one's most likely 29.97. We just call it 30. So when I'm at 1 minute, 8 seconds, 10 frames, it's 8 seconds and 1/3 of a second, if you will. And this will depend on your footage. Remember I said earlier, Zoom records at like 8 frames per second. It can actually cause video footage to be really terrible, and it can confuse video editing programs like this that are built around doing 24 and 30 as the most common. But this is a helpful piece of information because I want to take this clip and make it 1 minute, 8 seconds, and 10 frames long. So I'm going to go right click on this. I usually use a keyboard shortcut. So, oh, there it is. Right click, speed, duration, or you can press Command or Control R. And you see you can do a percentage. You can actually reverse it. Ripple Edit will make it change its position when you do it. So because unlike Premiere Rush, where everything kind of gets pushed up against itself as you change it, if I shrink this in the middle of a lot of clips, it will just create a gap in between them. That's what they mean by shifting trailing links. Okay, and I'm not going to do a percent because I'm not good at guessing. I'm just going to enter 1 minute, 8 seconds, 10 frames, and I click OK. And now they're the same length, and I think it ended up being 192% faster, almost 2 times speed. So if we watch that.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time.
Okay, that's fine. And then, I actually don't know what happens if I shrink this in. I think it just cuts it. Yeah. So we'll have to redo our sound, our song, but let's just go ahead and put it in there. So I put it in there. It always helps to see things more than once. So let's grab the remix tool right here. It was hiding in Ripple Edit, and drag this to be the same length as my project. Hey. That's interesting. Well, that's fine. I'll just actually let it end there. I think it probably couldn't create the repetition exactly at that point. And back, I switch back to my selection tool. Now what I can do with these two pieces of audio is go to Essential Sound. It already determined that this is music, the soundtrack. If it's not, I can go and redefine it by, I don't know where it is. That's okay. And then if we go to the voiceover, you can see it's asking me what this is: dialogue, music, sound effects, and ambience. So now I have a music track and an audio track. And in these tracks, using the Essential Sound, that's where I can adjust the volume. So if my speaking track seemed too quiet, I could adjust the level here. And in this case, I'd say the soundtrack is a little too loud. So I am going to adjust the level down. I enabled that, and I'm just going to reduce it by 4 decibels.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time.
Okay, and that might be fine, just to not have it overpower, but I can also enable something called ducking. Like not quack quack, but like, look, oh, you got to duck because you're going to hit your head. And what that instructs Premiere Pro to do is to compare it to your audio, your dialogue track, and when it notices pauses, the music will stay at its volume, and when it notices speaking, the volume will duck. It will get quieter. If you can imagine podcasts where they allow for dramatic pauses and kind of contemplation, anything like that, this can be a really handy tool. In this particular example, there might not be a lot of pauses, but let's see how it goes. I'm going to... This is good. Here's my ducking. So I have the soundtrack selected. I'm in Essential Sound. And here's ducking, where I will enable it. What is it going to duck against? It's going to duck against my dialogue, which already has been identified. And then I click Generate Keyframes, which we're going to talk about keyframes in a second. Keyframes are a change. A change starts here and finishes here. And between those two keyframes, Premiere Pro fills in the gaps. So if you say zoom out here and then be zoomed in here, it's not going to go from 100% zoomed out to 200%. It's going to create a gradual change from it. I believe it's an old animation term where like the head animator would give the start and finish of an animation sequence, and the interns or grunts would have to draw the spaces in between, like Mickey Mouse walking. I could be wrong. I'm just a photo dude. Okay, so I'll click Generate Keyframes. And if you make any changes in your audio, you will need to generate them again. Let's see if it did anything.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time. This 2 mile...
Let's go right here.
Capitatum, or Blue Dix.
Do you see how it got louder again when there was a nice pause? So ducking can be a really useful tool. It's also in Premiere Rush, but in Premiere Pro, you have even more control, and I actually want the ducking to be a little less intense. Let's just do another 10. So if we were to listen...
The top. Some of the flowers we saw were Tequila.
Okay. And I butchered some Latin names here, so you can judge me if you want, but that's okay. That's kind of the audio section of the project, and some people, in this case, the audio is informing the footage, like the voiceover. So I decided to get my audio in place first. Some people like to do the audio later on. It's kind of whatever works best for you. But that's about all I'm going to show related to audio. Oh, actually, let's clean up my voice track. Sorry about that. So let's go to the dialogue. There are these repair menus. And again, honestly, we have a pretty clean audio track.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time. This 2 mile hike.
So I could try, like, I kind of am a lazy speaker, so sometimes there's some S-ing happening, so I might turn DS on. I also turn reduce noise, but just use like a 1.0 for it. Less is more. If you turn reduced noise up too much, then it will sound like whoever is talking to you from like another room. Like they kind of get muffled. When you're recording audio, of course, the best thing you can do is get a nice dedicated microphone. But at the very least, find a quiet place. You can remove ambient noise. You can de-ess. You can de-hum. You can never undo wind noise. So at the very least, get out of the wind for your audio, please. But so you can go in here and make quite a few changes. You can even put an EQ in there. Premiere Pro has some really robust audio features. They've got some full-blown equalizers, and you can do a lot more. But today's theme is getting comfortable with Premiere Pro, and I think this is the comfiest audio editing dialogue that there is. Okay, now that's everything I had to share about audio, if there's any questions related to that. Cool. How to make a video less shaky. So there is, and I'm not going to do it because it's kind of a power-hungry thing, but if you go under Effects, and I believe you go Stabilize, there's an effect called Warp Stabilizer. And that's going to attempt to figure out the kind of axes of your footage and stabilize it. It does have to zoom and crop it. And it can cause some strange distortion to occur. So, of course, the steadfast rule is always bring the best footage that you can. Use a tripod or get a gimbal. Where do I get my audio clips, like the soundtrack? Because the voiceover, it's just me, right? So the song I found was from Adobe Stock, but to revisit this, because I think some people joined, on our resource page. Oh, that's a good question. So on our resource page, there's a link that says Asset Resources. And of course, it's not going to go now because I was on there. You can find the YouTube audio library, which has mostly fair use audio that you can put into your projects. There's Pexels, and there's Penn State Media Library. Adobe Stock has audio too, but it's not free. So I always use Stock as a last resort. How can you make your person sound like they're on the phone? I'm not really sure, but like I typed adjust audio to sound like phone Premiere Pro. I often just do this, and you'll find countless resources to see if you. So here's a Student Films one, and you can see it looks like there's even a telephone receiver. Yeah, there's an FFT filter, and there's one called telephone receiver, and that will probably give that effect. Let's see if we can find it. I think that's a fun question. So if you notice, I'm just in my effects tab here, and I just search. Maybe you have to download it. But that's something you can email me, Charlene, and I can show you. I'll research the actual settings. You would jump into your actual equalizer, and you might add a little noise, a little reverb, and drop the bass down. But you can do that. I just don't know off the top of my head. Okay, so let's go ahead and get going and adding some more things. So
we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time.
I thought it would be fun. I made a mistake because the footage is of us hiking down Picacho Peak, but hopefully you'll forgive that. I'm going to start with a photograph that I thought was a nice picture. So this is Picacho Peak a few weeks ago, and I'm going to drop it above. And this is where I'll put a little intro graphic, and I'm actually going to have the image zoom in the video so that it's not just a static image, because that can be a little jarring to be like.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time. This 2-mile hike. Okay,
and I think I'd like the photograph to be done before I say this. So like everything else, photographs can be as long or short as you want because they are just a single frame that's displayed. So I'll just pull it into here. And we are going to get wild.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time.
And put a little motion to it using some keyframes. So I'm going to select the image clip. I'm going to go to Effect Controls. And you can see I have scale, which is size, and position, which is where it is in my program. I can also double click and I can resize and move it around, but let's go ahead and just go to scale. I'm going to click on 100 and scrub it to the left because it actually zoomed it in a little bit, maybe about right there. Okay, now what I want it to do is start zoomed out and then zoom in on that big beautiful saguaro and then start the rest of the video. So I'm going to change the zoom, the scale, and the position because that cactus isn't dead center. And to let Premiere Pro know that I'm about to do some keyframing and I want it to do some generation for me, some algorithmic magic, I'm going to turn these clocks on, and I have said this is the start of my keyframe. And then I'm just going to go to the very end of this clip, select it again, because I went beyond it and it deselected. And these are still ready to see a change. So I don't have to click anything. I just have to make my change. So I'm going to say, I want it zoomed in and I want it centered on this really cool saguaro. And if I go back to the beginning, I'm going to press home and I press play.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time.
I have created a very simple motion effect just using the effect controls and 2 keyframes. Any questions about keyframes? And keyframes are how all of the magic of transitions and motion graphics templates, a lot of how that works is based on that. So I try and get a little foundational knowledge on them in here. Okay. And maybe it would be nice to have a cross dissolve between this B-roll and A-roll. So I can also go to effects again, which is hiding over here. And I'm just going to search dissolve and video effects, video effects, video transitions, dissolve, cross dissolve. And I will just put it here at the end of the photograph.
Picacho Peak for the first time. This 2-mile hike had some incredible views, and this time of year, the wildflowers were putting on a really great show.
All right, so let's go back to my bin and to my video, and let's see if we can find some footage. I know I didn't get a name for this one. If anyone knows the name for this. But let's just put this here when I said the wildflowers were putting on a really good show. I actually said putting, but that's okay. I'm going to drop it in. And actually, let's go back and instead of dropping the audio as well, I'm going to drop just the video. And then we'll notice I have a disagreement between my sequence settings and this clip I just dragged in. And actually, I'm mixing resolutions too. I should have sized everything down to 1080p because this is the flower is 1080, but the main footage is 4K, but we'll just live through it. Just know that it's not really great to do that. I'm going to click on it, go to Effect Controls. We saw position and scale. We know how to make it bigger and change where it is, but there's also rotation where I can just enter 90 degrees. And then I can drag the scale up so that it fits in here. So then we have
views, and this time of year, the wildflowers were putting on a really great show.
Cool. I could add cross dissolves there as well if I wanted. If I go back to effects, I can put it at the beginning and at the end. And there are other transitions if you want to explore those. And it didn't do it. Put it there. There we go.
Here, the wildflowers were putting on a really great show.
And if that cross dissolve seems too long, I can actually click on it and shorten it or lengthen it. So I want these to be a little quicker. All right.
On our way up, we saw several wildflowers.
And what I'm going to do is just drop a couple other random videos in there. on our way up. So here's a piece of footage of us going up. And again, I'm going to drag just the video. And then I'll show you a slightly different way. I can also double click this video and move my mouse to the outside, I thought. I thought I could rotate on here. There's usually a handle somewhere. Maybe I'm the problem. But you can resize and usually rotate here. Maybe if I get it out. Yeah, so you can see my mouse is just being strange. If I get it just right, I get a bent arrow. I can hold that. And it's not working for me, so that's okay. I'm just going to go to Effect Controls, Rotation 90. Oh, but this one actually needed to be rotated the opposite direction, so I'm going to hit -90. And then I can double click and make it bigger if I want, or I could have used scale as well. And there's Ziv scrambling up a rock. Good job. I think that's long enough for that. Command K to split, or Control, and put it there. And what I would do,
some of the flowers we saw,
is I would lay out all my B-roll and then start doing transitions and everything. So I'm going to kind of keep going here. So this is saying some of the flowers that we saw. So that might be a nice spot to put a video of some guy taking pictures of flowers. And this looks like this might be another iPhone video. You can see because it's really washed out. It's kind of hard to look at. So I'm going to right click, modify, interpret footage, and I'm going to go color space override, Rec 709. And you can see that got a little fixed. Let's drag the video there. And that's definitely much longer than it needs to be. So we'll cut it there. I press Command or Control K. I might go ahead. Well, let's make it bigger. Again, my sequence settings are disagreeing with my footage. And I can go back to Lumetri Color Creative, and I can just add a little saturation, a little bit of vibrance, to hopefully have it be a little less disjointed between the two. You can also, there's a way to match footage, but I don't think we have time for that today, but it's pretty cool. All right. Okay, let's make this even shorter. What are you doing? My keyboard stuck. There we go. Okay, so now I'm trying to say flower names.
Capitilla capitatum, or Bludix.
All right, we're gonna start with Capillostatum, which I believe was this one. And again, so you might feel some redundancy here. There we go. It's letting me rotate this one. I'm holding Shift to do that. And it didn't actually pay attention to that. It's slightly crooked. All right. Okay. It did 89.3. Let's do 90. Oh, I made a big mistake. I dragged in the video with the audio and it actually overrode that, which is why I was saying to drag in just the video. I can't follow my own advice. All right, let's try that again. And let's just use the effects controls, 90, and scale goes up. And then
Capitilla capitatum, or Bludix.
Nice. Let's trim the excess. And then we have another flower.
Eschscholzia californica. I don't know if that's how you say that.
I butchered that one, but that's the California poppy. Pretty cute. Now, I'm doing it wrong again, and you can also just go a track higher so that the audio doesn't override. You can see I'm a creature of habit here. All right. And click on it, effect controls, and make it bigger. And then scrub through.
Californica. I don't know if that's how you say that. Or the California poppy.
All right, and I'm going to let that kind of cut out because the next one's here.
And Lupinus sparsiflorus, or Coulter's lupine.
Okay, so the lupine I actually goofed and don't have video of. I thought this was lupine, but it definitely isn't. So I'm going to use a photo and put that motion effect on it too. So photos, here it is, Coulter's lupine. And let's go back to effect controls because now we get to make keyframes again. I'm going to zoom it out because it's bigger than that. Pretty cute. And then we'll just zoom in on this lupine. So I'm going to go to the beginning of the clip. And I'm going to turn my keyframe for position and scale on. I'm going to go to the end of the clip. And I'm going to say we are zoomed in and we are on this lupine. Maybe like that. So then we say,
and Lupinus sparsiflorus, or Coulter's lupine.
All right. In the interest of time,
the next few days we were incredibly sore, but it was worth the work and the pain.
All right. So there's an awkward pause here that I think is a little too long, so I'm going to split it. Command K and just shrink this in a little, I think. This is being a little weird. And then I'll just put one more piece of B-roll. I would probably be much more conscientious of how I do my B-roll, but you know, this will be fine. Like that. And again, big mistake, 2 mistakes. This is iPhone footage I need to interpret. So back to color space override, and I need to get just the video, not the audio, so I don't mess my audio up. Drag the video. I was very scared coming down this because I'm scared of heights. So Kyle stopped recording me. Thanks, Kyle. You can see Ziv being very brave, just jumping around. All right, and we'll just end it here. So I said because of the interest of time, I would go and add my cross dissolves, but I do want to add a couple pieces of text overlay, show you a green screen, show you how to export, and then give time for questions. Are we feeling okay? Is there anything I've shown that you'd like me to revisit? There's always time at the end as well. Okay, let's add a title sequence. So that's the Essential Graphics panel here. I'm going to go Browse, and you will see a lot of options. You can actually browse Adobe stock and find even more. And I don't know. So if you're like me, you can lose a lot of time trying to find the perfect graphic. So I'm going to try my best not to. I'm going to purchase this one for us to play with. Why not? If there's ever anything on Adobe stock that isn't free and you would love for your project and you're a University of Arizona person, you can shoot us an email. Maybe Kyle and Ziv can put the email in there. And we can license it for you, and then it gets licensed for everyone. Ooh, that's funny. We had a support case about that. All right, okay, let's not go there. It's not working right now. So let's just do a really basic title sequence. Let's do just title, subtitle. So I'm going to just put this above because these are their own graphics sequences. And I'm going to make it shorter than my photograph. And if I click on this, you'll see it's now set to edit. And I can change it to... I always get lost in here. You can just double... I don't know why my mouse keeps changing. Okay, you can double click on the text and then you can put Picacho Peak, Tucson, Arizona. That's good enough. And then if I wanted to, I could grab my mouse tool and I could change the position of either of these. I can make them bigger. Whoa. Okay, I don't know why it only did the one. Let's do it in the... There. So if you go to the Essential Graphics panel, you can actually just affect the Oh, I guess there's some spacing between them. They're linked. That's okay. We'll leave them linked. If I go to Picacho Peak, I can go and change the color if I wanted. I can change if it has an outline. I can put a background on it, like a solid color, and I can give it a shadow. There's even mask with text, which will put the footage inside the text, but we're not doing that today. Let's just see what this looks like.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time.
Oh, that's a really boring one. I want one with graphics. Let's try this angled title instead. Or I want one with motion. Okay. So this one.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time.
All right, so this one has a little action to it. Something is going on with this computer because my mouse isn't showing what it should. I apologize. Okay, so same game. I can click on it, then go to Essential Graphics, and your title here is where I can click. And if I double click, I can put Picacho Peak. And then if we press play.
The other day, we hiked up Picacho.
And I might say, wow, that text is too thin. Let's try a chunkier text. I wonder if, yeah, here is Proxima Nova, University one, and let's use black. No? Why isn't it changing? Let's double click it. All right, back at it. There we go. I can change the color if I want. I can change the size. So you can really customize how these titles come out. And it needs to end a little sooner. It lingered on top of the cross dissolve. So
the other day we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time.
All right. And then let's say I wanted to put some lower thirds on each flower because I mumble and maybe you can't understand what I'm saying. So here we have, I don't even remember what it's called, but I don't need to because I put the name here. Okay, let's go back to browse. You can also search like lower thirds is a common name for like putting someone's title information, and you can see it's giving me angled. Well, there is angled because that's the same I used for my intros, so I'd probably want to be consistent. So let's put right here, and you can see it's going to go right there. I can go back to edit, click on this, double click image caption here, and just paste in the name. And what I would probably remove the common name, but that's okay. And then shrink this down. So we can see
Dactylostemma capitatum, or Bludix.
So that's a really nice and quick way to add some important information. I can also add captioning to my entire project, which you can also do in YouTube and other projects. But just to show you how you do that, you can go to the Captions and Graphics workspace. And right here, you can say create transcription. And I'm going to tell it to, I can use the whole track, but you can also select which track to use. And now it will read my audio, or it'll transcribe my audio and turn it into captions. I imagine, I'm going to go ahead and click this CC button to create captions. I will have to go and edit these subtitles because there's some Latin names in there that, so the killer stem, a capital M, is not what I said. I said whatever this was. Diclostemma capitatum or something like that. So you can actually go and edit the text and change what it looks like. So that's a really nice way to caption your videos and be sure of what the captions are going to be. I'm going to go ahead and hide them because they're going to disagree with us. And the last thing I would do is maybe just put a fade to black here on my video. I'm going to have it end a little sooner. So I'll go to effects. I'm going to do dip to black and put it on here and just have it happen sooner. So we can see
flowers are done with their show. Thanks for watching.
The end. So we really saw almost everything that will go into creating a video, maybe only for moments at a time. We started with our A-roll and our audio, and we went ahead and adjusted those first before cutting everything up. We saw how to trim clips, how to rearrange clips, how to bring in B-roll footage, image footage, how to add transitions, and how to add captions and titles. We also saw how to make a song longer to fit our project, which is kind of nice. The next thing I'm going to do is export this, and then I'm going to show you how to use the green screen, the chroma key, and then it's time for plenty of questions. So I haven't saved in a while, so I'm going to hit Command or Control S. And Premiere Pro, on the recent update, I'm going to go back to editing, has simplified the export process. So you can actually, in the top right, oh, maybe not. Oh, no, it's right here. Top left, there's Home, Import, Edit, and there's an Export workspace. That is really just like Premiere Rush. It's a cue it took from Rush. Generally speaking, you can use the defaults. Sometimes I choose Match Sequence, or Match Source, excuse me. And high, low, medium bitrate will affect the size of the file and the quality. And so I'll just do medium. Generally speaking, I don't mess with anything else. And then right here, location is where it's going to save. So pay attention to that as well. And here is the name. Picacho Rough Cut 329. And then I'll hit export. And it will render my project into an MP4 file. H.264 is the most common video format that's used now because it tends to be the highest quality for the smallest file size, but you can also select different formats. My computer is pretty beefy, so it's crunching through this pretty nicely. Sometimes rendering can take longer than the project itself is, especially depending on what effects you have or anything like that. So another piece of advice is for all you procrastinators out there like myself, don't wait until last minute. Actually, I think I froze. I was talking about how strong my computer is. Am I still here?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, cool. I'll take it. Thank you. So now let's look at green screen just for a minute. I'll show you the other. So if you want more export options, you can go File, Export Media, and you'll see this, but then you can go Media Encoder, and you can see far more options. And sometimes if your yeah, I guess my camera turned off. That's weird. If your project exports strangely in the quick export dialog, try using the media encoder. Oh, it looks like it's doing something else. What did I do? All right, let's see where my project is. Did it? Huh, I went again for some reason. But here's the finished project.
This 2-mile hike. The other day, we hiked up Picacho Peak for the first time. This 2-mile hike
there we go.
had some incredible views, and this time of year, the wildflower.
So video editing is a computer-intensive process, so plan accordingly. Okay, let's put a green screen bear here at the end just for fun. So I have this green screen bear. I'm gonna double click, and I don't think it has audio, but let's go ahead and put him. Let's just put him on top of everything. And what we do is, it's called a chroma key, and it's actually either a green screen or a blue screen, and I don't know which one's better or more popular. When you do this kind of work, you want to really be careful to have a separation between the subject and the green screen, and hopefully you don't have any green splashing onto them too. But then we just go to Effects, and we search. I think I just searched for key. It's called Ultra Key. And you drag this onto the green screen clip. And then when you go to Effect Controls, oh, you have to select the key. Sorry, it doesn't just do it automatically. So see the key color right now, it is masking out black, which is not my color. So I'm going to grab this eyedropper and say this. And then it removes the green screen. And then I have this bear.
So Scholzia.
And you can
California.
see
I don't know if that's how you say it.
you can actually go and adjust it even further. So if you just go and kind of work on these settings, you can clean up your green screen
California font.
further, but my bear's a little transparent now. But you can very quickly cut out that green background using the Ultra key. That is what I have to share with you today. I hope there was at least one new thing for you or one useful thing. We're here until 4:30. If you have any questions, please feel free to hang out. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day. I thank you for joining us, and we'll be doing this every Wednesday and Thursday for the next several weeks.